Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Vishnu Paramahamsa Purivedikacharya Srimad Bhakti Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Granted Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sixth canto, titled Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 1, The History of the Life of Ajamila, Text 31. Vikar Shato. We'll say it like this. Vikarshantontar hṛdaya dasi patim Ajamilam Yamapreshan Viṣṇudūtas Varayam Asur Ojasa Vikarshatontar hṛdaya dasi patim Ajamilam Yamapreshan Viṣṇudūtas Varayan Asur Ojasa Vikarshatontar hṛdaya dasi patim Ajamilam Yamapreshan Viṣṇudūtas Varayan Asur Ojasa Vikarshatanto hṛdaya Dasi patim Ajamilam Yamapreshyan Viṣṇudūtas Varayam asur ojasha
Dasi patim Ajamilam Yamapreshyan Viṣṇudūtas Varayam asur ojasha
Would you like to chant? Okay, word by word. Vikarshataha, snatching. Anta hṛdayat, from within the heart. Dasi patim, the husband of the prostitute. Ajamilam, Ajamila. Yamapreshyan, the messengers of Yamarāja. Viṣṇudūtas, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu. Varayam asuhu, forbade. Ojasa, with resounding voices. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The order carriers of Yamarāja were snatching the soul from the core of the heart of Ajamila, the husband of the prostitute. But with resounding voices, the messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Viṣṇudūtas, forbade them to do so. Purport. A Vaiṣṇava, one who has surrendered to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, is always protected by Lord Vishnu's order carriers. Because Ajamila had chanted the holy name of Narayana, the Viṣṇudūtas not only immediately arrived on the spot, but also at once ordered the Yamadūtas not to touch him. By speaking with resounding voices, the Viṣṇudūtas threatened to punish the Yamadūtas if they continued trying to snatch Ajamila's soul from his heart. The order carriers of Yamarāja have jurisdiction over all sinful living entities, but the messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Viṣṇudūtas, are capable of punishing anyone, including Yamarāja, if he wrongs a Vaiṣṇava. Materialistic scientists do not know where to find the soul within the body with their material instruments, but this verse clearly explains that the soul is within the core of the heart, hṛdaya. It is from the heart that the Yamadūtas were extracting the soul of Ajamila. Similarly, we learn that the Supersoul, Lord Vishnu, is always situated within the heart. īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe tiṣṭhati. In the Upaniṣads, it is said that the Supersoul and the individual soul are living in the same tree of the body as two friendly birds. The Supersoul is said to be friendly because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind to the original soul that when the original soul transmigrates from one body to another, the Lord goes with him. Furthermore, according to the desire and karma of the individual soul, the Lord, through the agency of māyā, creates another body for him. The heart of the body is a mechanical arrangement, as the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 18:61, īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe tiṣṭhati brahmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantra rudrani māyā. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, or rjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Yantra means a machine, such as an automobile. The driver of the machine of the body is the individual soul, who is also its director or proprietor. but the Supreme Proprietor is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One's body is created through the agency of māyā, karmana devanetrena, and according to one's activities in this life, another vehicle is created, again under the supervision of Daivi Māyā. Daivi heshu gunamayi mama māyā hṛdaya. At the appropriate time, one's next body is immediately chosen, and both the individual soul and the Supersoul transferred to that particular bodily machine. This is the process of transmigration. During transmigration from one body to the next, the soul is taken away by the order carriers of Yamarāja and put into a particular type of hellish life, naraka, in order to become accustomed to the condition in which he will live in his next body. Om Gayati Vedandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshulam Madhitamena Tasmai Shigraveda Mahamakam Kridavachalam Pangam Langa Tegadim Yakripatamaham Bande Shigarundi Nitarinam Vancha Kapadrivishcha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaiṣṇavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation again. The order carriers of Yamarāja were snatching the soul from the core of the heart of Ajamila, the husband of the prostitute, but with resounding voices, the messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Viṣṇudūtas, forbade them to do so. Daivi hesha gunmayi mama māyā hṛdaya mameve prapadyante māyā me tam tarantite. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that his material energy is very difficult to cross, but for one who is surrendered to him, it becomes very easy. Guna, the word guna is used, which Srila Prabhupada translates as, of course, we could translate as many different words. Prabhupada would translate it differently, different times, but in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, of this Daivihesha Gunamayi verse, Prabhupada says that guna referred to ropes. So the modes of material nature act as ropes or binding forces for the souls, conditioned souls, or the souls not surrendered to Krishna. And of course, the worst is tamagun. That's the worst. It's just complete darkness, illusion, madness. It's practically a helpless state of existence. And not that just animals are in the mode of ignorance, but humans could also be in the mode of ignorance, predominantly controlled by the mode of ignorance. And passion's better, but not best. It is characterized by strong desires for sense gratification and material enjoyment in this material world. And the mode of goodness is best out of those ropes because it is illuminating, and it is a platform in which one can make further advancement to the pure stage, pure Krishna consciousness. So when we are trying to elevate ourselves, when we're trying to elevate others, we're trying to, first and foremost, get out of the lower modes, right? Get out of ignorance, get out of passion, lust, anger, greed, darkness, intoxication, madness, helplessness. Be clean and sober and thoughtful and on like that. So to get out of those modes, that's the first thing. But it shouldn't stop there. In other words, sometimes, like Srila Prabhupada didn't come to America to rise everybody to the mode of goodness. He came to America to help them awaken their pure love for Krishna. And there's a difference, and there's a big difference, which sometimes within religions people fail to understand. the practitioners of those religions, means in their own personal lives, and also in their preaching endeavors. Let's rise everybody, instead of them being a meat-eating, lion, right? Animal, it's not really a lion, but it's just kind of, what do you say, metaphorically speaking, right? What do you say? Yeah. So instead of you get a guy, okay, he gives up meat and this and that, and you make him a vegetarian or something, like that's the goal, like you make him a lion into a monkey or something, transform, right? And he just continues in his sinful ways, although he's sinful in the mode of goodness. Because to be in the mode of goodness without Krishna consciousness, it's not that one is free from sin. It means that predominantly their life may be governed by the mode of goodness, or at least in certain ways, such as diet, health, right? But they could still be, say, sattvic demons, demons in the mode of goodness. It means people who are just asuric, who just don't want Krishna, or who are not interested in God. And so the business of the Krishna consciousness movement, it's not to bring people, just to the mode of goodness. That's not Srila Prabhupada's mission. That's another mission. Because the mode of goodness is not good enough, as we see here within the pastime of Ajamila. He was a good Brahmin boy. He was qualified in so many ways. Okay. Public announcement, advertisement. He was a good Brahmin boy. He was qualified. Wasn't that he was a bad boy in the lower modes or something. He was a good boy. But as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, the modes are always competing for dominance within a person's consciousness. So he wasn't steady in that mode of goodness, or at least he wasn't steady enough because he fell. So to preach Krishna consciousness, or to teach Krishna consciousness, it means to cut the knots of attachment. To present the message as Srila Prabhupada presented it, with the idea of actually helping people. Because it's hard to really say that people, that sometimes devotees are ultimately helping people if they're just letting them stay in lower stages of consciousness. It's like if a guru has a disciple and they just purposely not tell them certain information they should know. It's actually violent. It's a form of violence. And you'd say, well, I'm doing it to make money. Well, anyways. I wrote this book to make money. All right, well, maybe you shouldn't mask it as you preaching Krishna consciousness. Maybe you should just completely disguise that you're a devotee of Krishna and just write a book to make money then. Rather than writing a book that is misleading. Or books, it's not that there's only one or two or a few books written. There's books and lectures and podcasts and, right, somebody's speaking right now. There's a bunch of devotees speaking all over the world. Because the goal of life is not just to live in the mode of goodness, and especially I'm speaking about those who are preaching Krishna consciousness. It shouldn't be just to bring people to that stage. Like Swarup Damodar Goswami. Swarup Damodar Goswami, he was one of Lord Chaitanya's, right, he's a secretary and his personal associate. And before anything came to Lord Chaitanya, it means people would try to bring poetry and so on to Lord Chaitanya. It would first go through Swarup Damodar Goswami. And then if he said, fine, you could bring it to Lord Chaitanya, then it would go to Lord Chaitanya. Why? Because, first of all, the whole idea is to give pleasure to Lord Chaitanya. That's the idea. The idea is to give pleasure to Lord Chaitanya, give pleasure to the Charyas. So therefore it would go to Swarup Damodar Goswami, because Swarup Damodar Goswami, he knew intimately the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he knew what would give him pleasure and what wouldn't. So when we are trying to spread Krishna consciousness, when we're trying to be Krishna conscious, we have to always keep in mind that there's certain things that may give the spiritual master pleasure and may not. I mean, and that goes how we speak, how we write, how we talk with people. I mean, just like recently, I had an idea of writing a book, so I wrote it. And I'm very happy that Parashakti, our Parashakti here, everybody knows Parashakti. Parashakti, she told me, because I was mentioning it to her, I wrote a book, and then she said, you should present it to your spiritual master before you publish it. And I said, okay, I'll do that. Very good idea. So I did that. And he said that he read the manuscript electronically, and then he said that he was pleased with it, and there was just some question of the what do you call, not diacritic, there was question of the style, because diacritics, no diacritics, anyways, certain bold text, not bold text, it said some questions about that. And he very kindly went through the manuscript, and he made some changes in terms of how sentences were structured and commas and things like that. And I was very happy that he did that, because I was reading I did get it worked on by hṛd-deśe's mother. She's a professional editor, so she did work on it. But I was very happy I was looking at what she did and what I did and what others did, and I was looking at the adjustments he made, and each time I was seeing a correction or adjustment, I was very happy, And then after he looked through it, then it was published. Of course, any fool and rascal could publish something nowadays. I'm just another fool and rascal who published something via self-publishing company. So, of course, that could be the problem. Any fool and rascal could publish something nowadays. But because it's so important to keep the Acharya, to keep Srila Prabhupada, in our case, founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada of the Hare Krishna movement, to keep his message intact, because really it's up to the followers to do that. I mean, of course Prabhupada's here, but he's not here in a sense that, of course he can do this as well, chastise his disciples and grand disciples, but while he was physically manifest in this material world, he could just he put his foot down or put his cane down and say, we're not going this direction, and everybody would listen. But in the absence of such a personality, a person, everybody's trying to put their foot down, everybody's trying to put their cane down or whatever, and a lot of times people have different ideas which direction to go, so therefore it's challenging. In the case of Srila Prabhupada chastised one of his grand disciples, I've told this here before, but I always find it amusing, but there was a devotee in the 24-hour kirtan in Vrindavan, And he had a dream. He went to sleep in the brahmacharya ashram. He was sleeping there and had a dream. And in the dream, he went up to Srila Prabhupada in Murti, in the Vrindavan, in the temple room. And he was praying to Srila Prabhupada, and then Srila Prabhupada started to talk with him, started to talk to him. And Srila Prabhupada started, I'm very happy that you're engaging in this 24-hour kirtan. It brings me a lot of pleasure. And please continue. And then he said, then Srila Prabhupada said, but if you continue singing to impress women, he said, you're going to go to hell. So Deva's okay. And that was his dream, and he woke up, you know. so you know, probably like shocked him a little bit, right? A little jolt. All right, I got the message. Because Prabhupada's deep voice, you know. So he can, you know, come in different forms, right? And speak through people and so on, and set us in the right direction. But still, of course, just because, I mean, just like a parent may try to set the child in the right direction or try to speak whatever, so many, communicate in so many different ways, that's what Krishna has been doing, trying to communicate in so many different ways to us, to the souls, hey, surrender to me, turn back to me, but it's possible just to not listen, or to think, or just to our consciousness to be covered to the degree where we can't hear, or we can't notice. You know, like when you're trying to help somebody, like everybody knows the person has a problem. So it's just like written all over their face. It's in all their activities. It's in their way of behavior. It's just like clear as day. A person has a problem, and everybody knows it. But that person may not think they have a problem. And then everybody's trying to help them, and then they're thinking, oh, why are they trying to help me? What's wrong with these people? They think that the person thinks other people have a problem. I'm fine, you know. So it's possible just to not listen clearly. Just like, I don't know, so they have all these, what do you would call, clever bumper stickers, and I'm going to make a bunch of bumper sticker quotes now. But it was something like, I'm sure somebody saw that here. The guy said, it was a quote on a bumper sticker, something like, I like Jesus, you know, I'm not so sure about his followers, you know, something like that. Now, of course, it's not an overgeneralization. It means all of the followers. It means that the fanatical ones, you know, fire and brimstone, soapbox preachers, you know, damnation type of people, right? So we shouldn't be like that. In other words, we shouldn't have such a great spiritual master, grand spiritual master as Srila Prabhupada. And as a movement or as an individual, people say, yeah, I like Prabhupada, but, you know, not so sure about his followers. You know, those guys kind of, I mean, I've heard what he said. I saw the Hare Krishna film, right? Mantra movement, Swami started all, or I listened to some of his lectures or whatever, heard his kirtans, but I like him. I'm just not so sure about his followers. And of course, it seems like just a small point, but it's actually very important. I remember one devotee was telling me years ago that his first contact with Krishna consciousness was just Prabhupada. You know, he's reading Prabhupada's books and lectures, and he didn't visit the temple for quite a while. So then when he went to the temple, he was expecting to meet a bunch of people just like Prabhupada. You know? And it's not that the devotees weren't, but, you know, to find somebody just like Prabhupada, I mean, you know. But actually, as followers of Srila Prabhupada, we actually should be, you know, Prabhupada-like, godlike, godly, we should be, they say the fruit shouldn't fall too far from the tree, right? It doesn't. But it doesn't fall. Or else, without considering these things, without thinking about these things, without meditating on these things, without trying to follow them, we actually just remain bound up. And interesting enough, though thinking we're free, though thinking we're liberated, or thinking we're doing the right thing. And there's been many people in history who've thought they've done the right thing, but they're just absolutely wrong. And also many people within religious groups throughout history who thought they're doing the right thing, but it's just wrong. And they become spoilers of religion. Srila Prabhupada, I have to find the exact quote, but I think it's in the 4th canto somewhere, that the bad behavior of devotees is like a scar on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It means it looks bad. And again, all of this may seem very small, and why is this person saying this? Why is Balaram saying this? But it's not small, and it's actually just it's like sand in the sweet rice. It's just, you don't see it, so you actually don't see it until you taste it. You won't notice it, and until you actually look or experience. But it's a contamination. Same with, you could find gold in a filthy place, right? That quote is meant for non-devotees. We find gold in filthy place means they're non-devotees. They're not surrendered to Krishna, but we may find some things there that are good. Within certain books or lectures or something we could use for preaching or helping people understand Krishna consciousness or whatever. There's some good points that relate or that are directly connected to Krishna consciousness. But a devotee's book shouldn't be like that. You find gold in a filthy place means the book shouldn't be mostly a bunch of speculation and things that aren't absolutely that important, and then you find some gold in there. Or you could say it in this way, that pretty much 90% it's good, but then you find some trash in there. It's just okay, why did you have to put that there? What does that have to do with Krishna consciousness? What does that have to do with really helping people? It's just unnecessary. A person is, for example, there's all these books written about Ayurveda, right? Now, Ayurvedic doctors, they cover everything. Daily activities, what the different, definitions of the spices and what they do and how they're good and this and that and what you should, right? There's a whole science behind it. And within that science, of course, there's the daily activities, and part of human activities, usually, right? Eating, Ayurveda, a lot of it. Eating, sleeping. Okay, how do you sleep? Mating and defending. But, if one is a follower of Srila Prabhupada, there's no use of talking about, when's a good time to... first of all, not mentioning anything about Krishna consciousness. It's all just body, health, which is good. It's a necessary science. But to mask it as a preaching thing and to put ISKCON's name on it, and then talk about, good times to have sex in the day, It's what does it have to do with anything? And then to not tell people about Krishna, the absolute truth, and So then you're just encouraging people to be in mundane consciousness, or sattvic demons. And some devotees don't like that word demon. Prabhupada used the word demon. It's all over Prabhupada's books. One who's against God. That's what the definition means of a demon. One who's against God doesn't mean, horns. Veerabahu Prabhu, Prabhupada's disciple, he said, I never really liked Prabhupada using that word demon. So I didn't really like it, I mean, that's what he was saying. And, specifically, he didn't say, excuse me, I'm going to rewind there. Apologize, that's misinformation. He said, I never really liked devotees using that word demon. He didn't say Prabhupada, but he said devotees using the word demon, which is different. But and he heard His Holiness Giriraj Swami give a talk about the Juhu temple, Mr. Nar and everything, and then Veerabahu Prabhu said, when I heard of Mr. Nar, yeah, he's a demon. So the clock is right? Broken clock is right twice in a day. But, devotees shouldn't be like that. It means they should follow very closely Srila Prabhupada's footsteps. It's very clear, and if they want to do other things, don't call it Krishna consciousness, call it something else. And lastly, here, Ajamila, that's another thing within religion. It's like they have this idea, okay, there's God and there's Satan, right? This is one idea. There's many ideas, and there's an idea that God and Satan are like competing, It's like there's some type of, it's like a boxing match, and who's going to win, right? Is God going to win? Is Satan going to win? But our conviction and our understanding, given from the Bhagavad Purana, Krishna consciousness philosophy, is that there's no competition, right? No one could compete with Krishna. It's actually Krishna's energy, māyā. Prabhupada would say māyā or Satan. It's Krishna's energy, he says in the Bhagavad Gita in the purport. So here it's saying that the Viṣṇudūtas, they have the ability to even chastise Yamarāja if they wrong a Vaiṣṇava. So Krishna is all-powerful, and Krishna invests this power within the devotees. So it's an important point to consider. So in other words, if we're trying to get out of illusion, if we're trying to, get free from these ropes, Krishna, he's all-powerful. He could help. We just have to ask. Like Prabhupada would say, you're having some problems, then you go to Gaur-Nitai, right? Shri Shri Gaur-Nitai, and you fold your hands, you say, my dear sirs, Prabhupada said, my dear sirs, I am having this problem, please help me. Please engage me in your service. All right, so we could stop there. Does anybody have any question or comment?
Can you remind me of that last thing, that reference, where that was again?
My dear sir, this is in Srila Prabhupada, following Srila Prabhupada, and I don't remember who said that, but someone was recalling how Prabhupada said that, and it was in the Krishna Balarama temple specifically.
I thought it was also written somewhere.
Yeah, maybe written. I'm not sure. I don't remember. There's a lot. There's of course, we could remember a certain amount of them and where they're from, but I'm just saying you got all of those like Siddhanta books, and then you got the memoirs and all this stuff and correspondence, and there's a lot. They actually say that within other religions, there's a phenomenon of the leader, the main leader, the Acharya, of Jesus and Buddha and different personalities, right? So sometimes people look and they say, oh, they didn't say much, And if you look at it in relation to how much Srila Prabhupada said and wrote, I mean, there's no comparison in terms of what he said and wrote. So it's a lot to study and to try to understand. Yes.
Narottam Dasa, the course kind of praying that way, to the members of the Upanishads.
maybe you could speak into the mic for the. Here you could. Well, he could repeat it so other people could.
I did have a question.
Yeah, please.
So just on the last point you were making very nicely, thank you for a nice class. You know, kind of like sometimes devotees have done what kind of referred to as like bridge preaching, like in the 80s, Mukunda Maharaj, Dhruta Karma, they did that Vedic Contemporary Library series, like hṛd-deśe, Coming Back,
Oh yeah, those are great books.
Divine Nature. And so, you know, on the one hand, they're dealing with sub-religious principles, but they're picking up on the public's interest in some things that are somewhat favorable to Krishna consciousness. Like we used to go to they used to have the meet out day or the earth day, or, you know, trying to find common ground, right? And then sort of be there with a bunch of prasadam and other books and kirtan and sort of take advantage of people's interests. So, you know, so I guess when you were explaining that, you know, I was just trying to contrast. So I guess would the idea be that we would go not to the, like you gave the example of like Ayurveda, where, you know, yeah, okay, the Ayurveda says, you know, if you have this, you need to eat meat, or, you know, like when that, he wasn't Ayurvedic, but the doctor even wanted Gaur Mohan Day to feed you know, Prabhupada chicken broth when he had typhoid or something. So we just wouldn't go to that extreme, but then we can sort of, is that?
Yeah. There's, like, all of this, it's tough because people, it's so easy for people to get the wrong idea. I mean, it's because it's that cheating propensity that Srila Prabhupada mentions right in the beginning of the Sri Upaniṣads. Of course, it's mentioned other places, but the cheating propensity that, okay, well, I just don't want Krishna, and kind of keep me away from Krishna, keep me away from Krishna consciousness, and I just want to enjoy, you know, without Krishna. It's a very deep propensity. So if devotees aren't like really clear and concise and like giving people the right message, then people will become easily confused. And I mean, so that's why Srila Prabhupada was very clear. But some of these things can be engaged, and like, for example, it can be engaged in Krishna service, but like I'm not saying, you know, okay, devotees, it's, you know, they shouldn't write books on Ayurveda or something. They can, but I just question why do you have to just put that in there about, you know, a good time of the day, right? Don't not this time, not this time. Oh, this is a good time of the day to have sex. It's just like, okay, but, and then something about, you know, saying things, oh yeah, it's, you know, it's quite unhealthy to kind of, you know, control this desire, by the way. It's just like, okay, but then the whole book's about how to live a healthy life in terms of eating and exercise and Ayurveda. Okay, fine, but then why do you have to put that there? It just doesn't. I could say clearly I don't. I don't agree with it.
Right, sure.
And and of course it's a free world. No one has to listen. So who am I? You know, what do I think? But I'm convinced that Srila Prabhupada would also, you know, question such things. So these things can be done, but they have to be done in a certain way that doesn't give people the wrong idea or confuse people. Because these types of books, it's not that they're just for karmis. Devotees go around and distribute these books in temples. They're in gift shops. And you get all these new people coming, you know, to the Krishna lounge and so on, and this and that, and devotees, initiated devotees. It's not that one becomes initiated and, you know, they got all the perfect siddhanta and sambandha, and they just really know what they're doing. No. They need help. They need gurus. They need teachers. They need guidance. So then they read such books, and, you know, they're talking, okay, the benefits of ginger and the benefits of fennel, and okay, great, khichdi, this type of khichdi, it's good in the summer, it's good in the winter, okay, great. And oh yeah, hey, look at it. All right, I shouldn't have sex at this time of the day. I shouldn't have sex at that time. Oh yeah, and it's bad to restrict that, also that control. Oh, that's interesting. I don't remember Prabhupada saying that, but maybe, And it's just, how are these people not supposed to become confused by this? And ultimately, devotees aren't interested in sex, ultimately. What is it? Yadavadamamacheta Krishna, right? He says, when I think about it, I'm disgusted about it. I don't want anything to do with it. Of course, he's on the level of bhava, and it's a high level, and people may struggle with that, this and that. But ultimately, it's something that's not something that's just given up, and it's full on Krishna. So, people, but I would say people become confused by this. How can they not? And again, it's not that it's just like on Amazon and Barnes and Noble or something. This is a distributing gift shops. It's distributed at the Sunday feast, And then you don't read it until page 260. I don't know. I should say the exact number. You don't read it until page whatever, and then it's just like, okay, so all right, here we go. Anyways,
if I could make one other comment on that, just what you were explaining, I appreciate it a lot. It kind of struck me that, I guess, as a spiritual movement, right? That's like when Maharaj was giving class, and you were talking a lot about how Shukadeva Goswami was just cutting it. You know what I mean? Like karma, jnana, like anything less than bhakti. So on the one hand, we have that mandate, and it's so important. Like when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta met Srila Prabhupada, and he had good arguments, and he said, no, it's just not time for that, Lord Chaitanya's mission. So it almost seems like as a movement, then we have to be really careful about getting too enmeshed in, in
sub-religious principles.
Like, I don't want to create a controversy, but like in Alachua, there was a big back and forth, almost debate, when senior devotees came out pro-vaccine, but in a very public way. And I realized it was a health emergency and things like that, but it created a lot of pushback. Some people were really for it, and some people were really against it. And what we noticed was that really nice devotees were really at odds at each other, and it was painful actually to see. So it just seems like it is a delicate area, because we have our material side of ourself, and then we have who we are spiritually, which is what we're really all here for, And I guess whenever we cross those lines, we have to really be careful, huh?
Yeah.
In different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to be, because the tough thing about advent of technology, like even 50 years ago, within the Hare Krishna movement, there was a time. There was no internet, there was no email, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there's no YouTube, etc., 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 right? It just didn't exist. And the preachers of the Hare Krishna movement, of course people may, some problems, this and that, but, looking at what Prabhupada wanted, and what, mostly what happened, the preachers of the Hare Krishna movement were the preachers, and everybody else were, there were also preachers, but there was main figures that were leading things. And other people, you say this sounds really, really bad, right? They didn't have an influence. And he said, well, why can't everybody have an influence, right? In a spiritual movement? Well, because, of course, they can with the advent of technology. That's what I'm saying. So the thing is, nowadays, anybody is a preacher. And, they have a good voice, they learn harmonium, good looking. Maybe that will help. I don't know. Of course, people aren't interested in that stuff, right? Anyways. But, they know how to speak. They know how to, whatever, somehow or other, they have something that people want, they have some charisma, you could say, you could just what do you call, not conclude it, but in essence they have charisma. But what if they develop all. And then what if they're just saying something wrong, or what if they, they write a book and then it just there's some sand in the sweet rice, or what if they kind of have different ideas that are not really according to Prabhupada, and people may think they're small things, but personally, I don't think they're small things, because it could change the whole direction of a person's life. What people write, what people say. So nowadays it's just open field, everybody's. So it presents a bit of a challenge, actually, to keep the purity. So.
They call that mission drift sometimes, right?
Yeah, mission drift.
About that kind of.
Yeah, like for example, the Salvation Army. Now anybody who's born in America, and maybe if they're born in America 50 years ago or however long ago, but anyone brought up in America within the last 20 years, what do you think of when you think of the Salvation Army? Tyler?
Thrift shop.
Yeah, thrift shop. Place where you drop the junk and pick up the junk, right? Sometimes they're good stuff, but you don't think of like a, preaching mission and, saving people and all that. It's just, you don't think about that. But as far as I understand, that's what it was. Salvation Army. They're an army, right, of preachers, of people trying to save people, bring them to God. Trying to give them salvation. But, it just kind of changes into something else. Which, if you really think about that, I'm trying to rag on the Salvation Army, but if you really think about that, it's really depressing, actually. To have imagine we were just a big, thriving movement here in San Diego. Right, and we're pumping out Srila Prabhupada's books and doing Harinam, and so many people are coming and chanting Hare Krishna. And then gradually, this place just becomes a big thrift shop, selling stuff. All right, Tyler, it's your day to go out and sell the old fans that we got donated. Can you imagine how depressing that would be? So, anyways.
Rashika Sindhu had one.
Yes. Okay.
I do, but Rashika has one. No,
He was first? Okay. All right, Rashika Sindhu and then Tyler.
So I wanted to understand that we hear that Yamarāja is a Mahajan.
Yes.
Right? So
how can the Viṣṇudūtas punish him?
Yeah, I wanted to understand the qualities of Yamarāja also. What is so special in him that because there is Indra, Indra is also a demigod, and if you see in one way, Yamarāja he's taking care of people to get rectified. So what is his quality which...
Well, Yamarāja is a pure devotee of Krishna. He's a Mahajan, right? But it's a very important service. It's not so easy to find somebody who's a devotee, who's neutral, means they're not taking sides. Of course, there's many devotees out there, but I'm not trying to paint some bad picture or something. But there's many devotees out there, but in some ways it's rare, not taking sides and justice and all that. There's only so many judges. There's many lawyers, right? So Yamarāja, he's a supreme judge, and he's fair, and he's honest, and he knows the rules, So that's why he has that service. Is he's a pure devotee. He's not going to do anything wrong, and he knows the rules. Of course, there's that case where that yogi. I think in his childhood, he poked a insect, and then, anyways, he was kind of mad at Yamarāja, and then he cursed Yamarāja to become Vidura and all that. Of course, there's a little pastime, but he knows, so it's important. So that's why it's not everybody could do that. Just like you see Indra, with all due respect, but he also knows the rules, but sometimes he breaks the rules. He loses control of his senses, of his mind, and he does things that just shouldn't be done, and he gets in trouble for it, and he gets others in trouble for it. Not all the time, and he's also a devotee, and he's doing important service. So Yamarāja has that special quality of knowing what should be done, what should not be done, knowing the rules, and then based on those rules, he'll punish people accordingly, like a good judge. So it's important service. Yeah. Anyways, that's okay.
Thank you for a wonderful class, Balaram. I like the direction you took it. There's a lot of takeaways from that. I've had 2 burning questions for the week, and I haven't been able to ask them, so they're totally flushed out. And they're about clarifying 2 ideas. But I had a really quick question about the board. The Viṣṇudūta, the second U has a long dash over it, but the way we're pronouncing it sounds like those 2 U's are pronounced the same way. What happens when there's a dash above the U? Because I know with the A, it's a long A.
Ask our Sanskritam man here.
No, it's different.
It's
like we're going
I think the
Viṣṇudūta.
line, it becomes
It's doubled.
yeah, it's doubled. The sound is doubled.
It makes it from a weak syllable to a strong
But
syllable.
were we saying Viṣṇudūta?
Yeah.
You just said it was different. You said
There you go, Viṣṇudūta.
Even when
Yeah.
you just said Viṣṇudūta, it said Viṣṇudūta.
Yeah, it's what Maharaj said is very precise.
Viṣṇudūta.
Yeah.
That sounds like more the function of the D. So we should just elongate that
No,
U?
Yeah, that's the idea.
No?
It would be, otherwise it would be Viṣṇudūta, they'd have the same value. But it's I think in English we call it an accented syllable. So it's drawn out twice as long.
So we say Viṣṇudūta?
Viṣṇudūta.
Okay. I just didn't think when we were chanting we were saying that. I didn't pick up on that. So it sounded like we were just saying the same U. But I figured it was a long...
We need our Sanskrit referee here, Dravida Prabhu.
Yeah, I was going to save it for him, but it's right there on the board. I thought we could talk about it. But the long A, you can hear it really well. So the long U, I don't know how many times we've come across that. So I get it. I figured it was a long. So the 2 questions I've had, and they're brought up mostly from Ashram Maharaja's classes, is that... So he kept saying that Ajamila is taking his last breath. He's taking his last breath, and now we're preparing for this time of death so we can be chanting the Lord's holy names. And I guess when we die and we're chanting the Lord's holy name, the Viṣṇudūtas take us up to meet Krishna. So that's the death process. These descending people are coming to take us away, the soul. So he's taking his last breath. His material physical body is dead as to the last exhale of that. He's dead. But after this whole pastime between the Yamadūtas and the Viṣṇudūtas, he now lives again. How? His body just died. He took his last breath.
Well, I mean, like, for example, in the pastime in, what is it? I think it's 6th canto. You have that, the boy, what's his name? Harsha-shoka, 8th. Is it 8th? Harsha-shoka, anyways, I think maybe... Yeah, is that 8th canto? 6th? Anyways. Harsha-shoka, by the boy, right? Harsha-shoka means lamentation. Harsha, happiness, lamentation? Yeah, joy, lamentation. So, anyways, the king, he wanted a son, and he couldn't have a son, and then eventually he had a son by the blessing of the sages. But Harsha-shoka means it gives joy and also lamentation. So the wives of the other wives of the king were envious, and they poisoned this young infant boy, and he died. And then Narada Muni came back, and then the boy was there, and then Narada Muni brought him back to life. But the soul came back, and then he was speaking to his mother and father. Oh, which mother and father are you? So anyways, there's ways for a dead body to become, revived, the soul come back. So this is a similar case because he was, revived, or the soul came back, or whatever, and then he got a second chance, and he went up to, where did he go? The Rishikesh. Went up to Rishikesh and perfected his bhajan. Perfected himself.
I know that probably gets really technical because it's like the young boy, he obviously has a life that is still healthy and living.
But then he left. The young boy left after that. So.
Like left his body?
Yeah.
Oh.
He came to preach.
Yeah, he woke up and instructed his father.
Yeah, and then he left after that. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. So these material bodies, when you're doing spiritual stuff, it doesn't really matter what condition they're in. You can kind of just come and leave it as you go. It sounds like.
Isn't left the key word? Like if the soul leaves, the body's dead because it's already dead.
Mhm.
But then because of the presence of the soul, it's animated. So if the soul leaves, it's dead. But if the soul comes back immediately, it has like it hasn't gone through all the stages of freezing up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's like, my lung just collapsed on that last exhale. I'm coming back. All right. The lung uncollapses.
Well, the thing is, this is like mystic.
I know.
This generally doesn't happen.
Okay.
Such cases as Harsha-shoka, Ajamila, generally doesn't happen.
Okay. That's
Happens
why I was
sometimes,
wrapping my head around it.
Actually, this devotee, Bhakti Vasudeva Swami, it's an interesting story. He's from Nigeria. And he was driving in a car. And all of a sudden he's driving and he has a crash, like a really bad crash. And he was, at the time he's saying, I'm going to die. So then he thought about Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then and then all of a sudden he wakes up. I think he woke up and he was like surrounded by, or at least there's some other kind of corpses around him. I don't know if it was a hospital or something, and then the first thought he thought in his mind was, "Oh, Krishna cheated me," because I thought of him, and then now I'm awake. I didn't die, Anyways, he was a disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and he was like, wheelchair for months and this and that. And then when Bhakti Tirtha Swami saw him, he said, "Oh, Vasudev, he's taking the crash course." So. Yeah, you could go.
The other one too is. Please.
Because you emphasized it, and apparently I did, the last breath thing. That was a manner of speaking. Because that's when this happens. The Yamadūtas are right there, and we just read they're snatching his atma from the heart. So that's when that happens. So he's drawing his last breath, but then it's like he gets that, And, it's like Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj, oh, Krishna's cheated. But here, Krishna's given me a second chance because, what I had coming was pretty awful. And the Yamadūtas, knowing his record, were really eager.
Oh, okay.
So they're just like, they're right there. But because he was chanting Narayana, the Viṣṇudūtas were also right there, Johnny on the spot. And they were able to, they were able to prevent, as we see in today's verse, they were able to prevent the Yamadūtas from doing their job. So then the Yamadūtas go back to Yamarāja and like, well, what the heck,
Yeah, it's quite a scene.
He was talking about Vyasadeva and then Narada Muni coming, and he was, diagnosing the heart.
Yeah.
So just a really quick question about how. So Vyasadeva knows he's written everything, and now he knows he needs to continue writing. So he's going to write Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavat Purana. So that is a conversation between like a king and a guru, but they're having a conversation about saints on a bank. So it's two conversations occurring that are being recorded, and he didn't just think, "Oh, I'm going to compose this," right? Through revelation, those conversations actually happened, and he's compiling them in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So factually, when Narada Muni, like whatever date on earth that was, did those conversations previously occur, and he's just recording both those conversations? Or does he know those conversations are coming in the future, and he has access to them, or has Parikh had already been instructed, and the saints have already met, and he's just recording what has already occurred?
Well, for example, it says that Krishna's pastimes, he's appearing in different universes, right? And the pastimes are going on like that. So, different universes, different Kali Yugas. Hare Krishna, Subhadra. Good morning. Good morning to you. So there's different universe, different yugas, different things going on. So, similar, could say similar pastimes going on. I'm just trying to think of some. Anyways, I'm having a hard time. We went to sleep kind of late last night. we were, out in Chula Vista, and anyways, we got back.
It was Friday night, we were out partying.
Yeah, it was late, so.
And I'm house cleaning.
And I had to
Yeah.
kind of like wind down
Yeah.
too, so it kind of took me to wind down a little bit.
Exactly. And we made it to Mongolia.
Yeah, and we
Okay.
still came, so
These were intended for
I'm gonna have
him, so thank you for fielding them today. So
I'm having a hard
appreciate
time
that.
getting some references.
So if they're happening eternally, he can just go, oh, universe X, Y, and Z, this kind of occurred. I can just formulate this for this
Well,
universe.
there's like different
a palatable
yugas,
type.
there's different times, there's, there's a, the Vyasadeva, he has a lot to
Pull from.
pull from.
Okay.
Yeah, Lord Boar, two different, some, in one yuga, the boar, boar is white, in another yuga, he's red.
But to our understanding, Parikit lived in our universe? In
Yeah.
the banks, they met
Yeah,
on there? In
yeah.
our universe, okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter factually the time it occurred. It did occur, and he can kind of pull from an analogous experience and
Well,
know what's
like-
going to happen.
Like in the advent of Kali Yuga, as far as I understand, they're talking about the advent of this. The Bhagavatam's talking about this, universe, this time frame. That's the idea. Krishna came 5,000 years ago. Here, this universe, and then Bhagavatam. So
Was Sukadev his son?
whose son?
Vyasadeva? Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so it's pretty close to...
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with
Yeah.
Sukadeva Goswami. It says he's in his mother's womb for 16 years, and he didn't want to come out because he thought, okay, I'm gonna fall into Maya, right? So much Maya out there, I'm just gonna, So then eventually he came out 16 years later, and it said right when he came out, he left for the forest because he didn't want to become entangled, the affection of mother and father and forgetting, right? He was actually a Brahmavadi. Yeah. What was that? Oh, then as far as I heard, what happened is he was going out to the forest, and then Vyasadeva was calling him, "Oh, son, come back, come back." And then it said that all they heard was just the echo of the forest, It means he wasn't responding, he just kept on going. But then eventually, it's explained, at least I've heard, that he chanted some nectar shlokas from the Bhagavatam.
He sent some disciples out in the guise of woodcutters
Mm.
and gave them a couple of nectar shlokas.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he sends, aho bakiyam stanakal vakutam, right? This verse about who could be more merciful than Krishna. How can I surrender to anyone else more merciful than Krishna? He gave, Putana wanted to kill him, but then he gave her a position in the spiritual world. So how can I... So anyways, then Shukadeva Goswami became attracted, right? And he came back, heard the Bhagavatam. And yes. Yeah, you could ask.
No, it'd be a kind of long thing. So.
Well, let's just hear it, because you're going to India.
You were yeah, we're in anxiety. He's in anxiety because the guys at LA.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And my thing will probably be the long.
Okay, how about we just do 5 minutes of it?
Okay, well, the first thing
And we could have another class on it when you come back.
Well, the first thing I was thinking when you were talking about the topic of bridge preaching, and he was saying where exactly, do you draw the line, or how do you discern that? I was thinking, because it's one thing to tell something that's true and meter it out in a certain way so that someone's understanding something, they're actually getting something, they're actually understanding something, meaning they're actually understanding something that's true, but just in a very metered out thing, that they can
Gradually.
understand. Yeah. So therefore you're delivering something, but you're really reducing how much you're saying,
Yes.
or what,
Yes.
And there's a difference between that, I was thinking, and reducing what you're saying, kind of with an almost strategic, almost knowing that the wrong conclusion will get across, and they'll like that wrong conclusion, so it'll kind of keep them, or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's I'm going to reduce what I say because that's all they can understand, but it's true, or versus I'm going to reduce what I say because that's what they already agree with. Or
Yeah.
that's what they already like. Even if, and I know technically it's true, but they don't even know the way it's true. They know the way it's not true, but they think that's true. So
Yeah.
you're kind of giving them a misconception. And I was thinking...
It's a good point, because we want to bring people to the point of surrendering to Krishna, and it's maybe gradual, but yeah.
And I was thinking, Rajendra Nandapu used that example of, I don't know the past time, but something like someone brought up that there's the Shastric evidence that it's very good, or it's perfectly, at least it's bona fide, as we'd say, that to keep a murti of Shiva outside or in front of the temple or in the entrance, something like that. And that someone brought that to Srila Prabhupada, as far as I remember how he said this, that someone
Yes.
brought that to Srila Prabhupada, and he said that while it's true, we're not going to do that because people they'll misunderstand it.
Yes.
So it's not enough just to say something or do something that's actually good or true, but actually want to say something that's true that they'll understand how it's true, or if they'll understand it properly. So just to say something that's true, because I was thinking devil's advocate, you could say, I think, and Prabhupada says, discusses in Bhagavatam the good times to have sex like with ditthi.
Yeah.
But of course the context is, sex for a Krishna conscious child.
Yeah, the context.
So you could say, okay, well, and you could even say that you could kind of then reduce that, kind of the details of it, and say, okay, well, these are the better times to have sex, But then what's the point coming across? Is well, then I won't go further into that. The other thing briefly that I was going to ask, kind of as a devil's advocate, or which it kind of sounds like a stump the speaker kind of question, but I'm like genuinely wondering what you would say about this, because when it comes to someone supporting themselves, or a person supporting himself financially, then a devotee may then we've discussed this before, but I may be a doctor.
Yes.
So if I'm a doctor and someone comes to me and says, well, hey, I'm 25 years old, I have my girlfriend, but I'm suffering from erectile dysfunction. How do I solve that? And then as a doctor, then it's my job to give him advice how to, basically go, engage in sinful activity, or help him. Now you could say that also it could help him conceive a child. And so, there's and you could say it could help him conceive a Krishna conscious child. But that's my job. And therefore, so if I'm a doctor, even though, Western doctor, whatever, it seems like I can be a devotee, but that's my job. So someone comes to me and they just want to facilitate their sense gratification, but my job is to help them help themselves so they can engage like that.
Yeah.
And then if I'm an Ayurvedic doctor, it seems the same thing would probably fly, like it'd be understandable. But then if I'm a devotee and I'm an Ayurvedic doctor, then I publish a book, and in that book I say, well, for erectile dysfunction or something like that, which could have a place, even for the very, very, very strict sadhaka, but you see what I mean? That it seems like I'm not sure where to draw that line when it's someone who's for their profession.
Well, the thing is, it's one thing. Like, for example, it says in Srila Prabhupada's books, in Dwarka, there was a bunch of people greeting them. And some of those people were prostitutes. And they were devotees of Krishna. Prabhupada explains it in the purport, it's in there in the verse. So now that's their profession. But they're not, we could say, they're not acting as if they were preachers of Krishna's glories, and this and that. No, they're just, by circumstance, somehow or other, they have such a profession. And they're not happy about it, they're not thrilled about it, but they just have that, profession. But they're not going around and we're the acharyas, now we're going to sit on the Vyasasana, now we're going to write books, and now we're going to tell everybody that we know how to lead their lives, So there's a difference there. There's a difference between doing something as a profession and doing something with the idea, profession making money. Of course, the more Krishna conscious a profession could be, the better, You'd say, oh, well, hey, I'm out there selling, drugs on the street. It's like, hey, it's just by profession. Well, try to get out of it, try to do something else, That's the idea. But there's a difference between doing that and then doing such a thing and then being like a leader figure. So that's what I'm really talking about. You may do so many things as a profession, and try to do the most Krishna conscious profession, but don't do a profession thing and just kind of mask it as some preaching or something. So that's the idea. So anyways, Mogalila, he's trying to, he's getting nervous, right? Go to LAX. So Mogalila Das Brahmachari and Mukunda Das Brahmachari, they're going to India, back to India. And specifically, they're going to Vrindavan and Mayapur. So all the devotees could wish them as happy as it could be on the plane, right? A happy, peaceful journey Hopefully it's not too disturbing for your balance of your body and mind, but a more happy stay in Vrindavan, and we'll see them in about a month by Krishna's mercy. Okay, Grantrad Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Hare Krishna.